Hello, everybody, and welcome. Happy September. It is almost fall, y'all. Although many of you guys know I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and we finally broke 100 degrees. So hallelujah. Fall actually seems like it might be around the corner. But for everybody who's already wearing sweaters on the other side, I'm very, very jealous. Well, guys, I know we have a lot of guests today because new guests today, because our guest speaker did an amazing job sharing what he's about to speak with today. So I'm super excited to bring him to the stage here in a little bit. But before, let's do some housekeeping items. If you guys are new, do me a favor, drop new in the Q&A so that we can give you guys a warm welcome. And for every single one of you guys that tune in on the monthly, every third Tuesday of the month at 2 p.m. Eastern, welcome back again. We're super excited that you guys are enjoying the show since we launched it back in May. I'm Mel. I am your host. I'm the VP of Sales here at Bree Health, and I bring over 2 decades in the live event and in the virtual event space. I have a master's degree in education, and I have a passion to educate and invest and teach in you guys. So spending time with you guys every single month, getting ready for these shows really fills my love tank. And I'm very thankful that you guys trust me to bring you guys every single episode and all the experience and the wealth of knowledge that we bring to this community. So thank you. I would highly suggest you guys get out your pens and papers today and get ready to take some notes. So let's go ahead and get started and hear where everybody's tuning in. If you're new to the show, just know that we are streaming live on a couple of platforms. And then I see a lot of you guys here in our Zoom room. So if you're not registered for the show, Sky, my moderator, is actually going to drop in the chat box right now a link for you guys to get registered on the Zoom side of the show. The reason why I ask you guys to do that is, yes, we are streaming live right now on YouTube, on the Bree Health YouTube page, which Sky is also going to drop. But in addition to that, we are live on my LinkedIn, our guest speakers LinkedIn, the Bree Health LinkedIn. Follow us so that you guys don't miss out on things in between shows, as we're constantly posting, lots of content in between those. But why we want you to get registered on the Zoom side of things is because for every single one of you guys, you will walk away with a free gift after every one of our shows. And that free gift basically is the tangible, actionable items that you guys can take and away from this. The lesson that our guest speaker teaches you guys, you can go apply it in the workplace. And so the only way you can get that is if we have your email address and we're able to send that to you after the show. So Sky, go ahead and drop those in. And then I just want to give a shout out really quick to Sky and Jeff, my marketing team behind this really quick, because guess what they've done? If you're following me personally on LinkedIn, I posted this last week. So go ahead and go back in my post. Maybe it was 4 or 5 posts ago. They created all of our guest speakers since May. They've taken all of those gifts and they've put it into an ebook that you guys can actually download. So maybe Sky, I know I'm putting her on the spot right now because I didn't let her know ahead of time, but maybe she could drop that link to you guys. You can actually just go and download every episode that we've had prior to this. And you guys can take those takeaway items and apply them in your workplace, which would be amazing. So many good topics that we've covered, you guys, to really spring you forward as we all enter into the last quarter of the year and the holidays. Anybody else seeing Christmas stuff out already, by the way? All right, so tune in, make sure you like, you comment on all of those pages. Here, Melissa, you are logging in from Phoenix. Let me see if that's Miss Moreno. It is. Welcome, her first time actually getting in the show live. I know she's been asking for the replay. We have Tommy Jackson. Welcome, Tommy. 72 degrees here in PA. Oh, so jealous. I think today we get to 98. But here's the good thing. We have no hundreds, triple digits going on for the next 7 days here. So I'm feeling a little blessed. Welcome to every single one of you. I can't switch over to YouTube or LinkedIn right now. So welcome if you guys dropped it in the chat box there. We're super excited to have you guys. All right. So last week, give me an emoji in LinkedIn. If you guys got a thumbs up, a clap, if you tuned in. She did such an amazing job. Not last week. I'm sorry. Last month, our special guest speaker, Miss Trisha, she covered last week ways that we could spend less time managing our people and and just be more strategic with our time. She discussed showing empathy was a big one, considering all candidates, and practicing active listening and communication skills, creating meaningful connections. Her and I spent a lot of time on talking about how people are human, right? And sometimes in the HR role and in leadership roles, we forget, and that we all have to be able to wear multiple hats in our jobs. But all of these, I find this interesting. All the topics that we have been covering, and they've always been different topics. So if you're new to the show, we never cover a same topic. We really try to diversify the conversations that we have and discussions that we have here on the show, but they all do have some common themes. And so the empathy has been a big one, and active listening and communication and just connecting with people, right? Stop managing people and start investing in them and mentoring them. And so that was a great show. If you guys need the replay to that show because you missed it, head over to Bree Health's YouTube channel. If you guys go under Sky, you can correct me, but I think it's the live episodes, or it says live on it. You will see all of the past episodes and you guys can go ahead and watch those. It was a great one. But today I'm super excited. I've had Trevor in the pipeline now, you guys, for several months, preparing behind the scenes for today's, and he's going to talk about a hot topic. I know if you guys were at SHRM-23 in Las Vegas this year, this was a big one, talking all about retention and the employee experience. He's going to touch on certain learning objectives about retention and turnover, employee engagement. And really, if you're a decision maker in here, if you're in management or leadership on the show today, he's going to talk to you guys about how it's affecting your bottom line, either positively or negatively. And so these are probably some things that we don't always think about. But remember, he's going to have you guys walk away with tactics that you guys can apply in the workplace to be able to flip that around. Well, last month when I shared this slide, I was getting ready to go to SHRM, so the state conference here in Arizona that happened at the Renaissance Hotel. Give me an emoji, drop me a like if you guys, had some gambling fun with me at the masquerade, or you stopped by my booth, or maybe, I know I had tons of you guys register for the show. It's your first time from that event, but we're now gearing up. My boss likes to put my stuff in a suitcase and put me on a plane, but this time the entire Bree Health team is going. We are going to HR Tech in Las Vegas in 3 short weeks, I believe that is. Super excited. If you guys haven't been to this, it's one of the biggest HR conferences, and Bree is going all out, really just to showcase all of our new initiatives that we're doing here at Bree Health behind the scenes. And so we're going to be in the expo hall. I'm teasing you guys a little bit. You can't miss us. Our marketing team has done an amazing job. This is kind of our draft of what our booth is going to look like. And so we're really excited. Come say hi. Sky, if you're moderating this, I know you are, drop in there if we know the booth number. I was going to ask you that this morning and I forgot. So guys, if she has it, if they've assigned it to us, we'll give you the booth number, and please come by. I have learned that we have a really, really large giveaway that we are doing at this HR Tech conference, and you do not want to miss coming in and putting your name in the hat for that. So I'm going to keep teasing you all with that. Maybe the week before the conference, I'll give it away to you guys, but come visit us at HR Tech. All right, so what is this show all about, guys? We are going to have amazing conversations and discussions today about employee retention and experience, but I have to give credit where credit is due. My entire team here at Bree Health produces this show, and so we're here basically to serve, to be a force for good, to create an inner circle of mental health and HR professionals and industry experts and thought leaders to invest in you guys. We want to bring you real live situations, conversations, experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly on this show. And we're just hoping you guys to make an impact. And we're so thankful that you guys are joining us. But thank you personally to every single person who puts the time and energy. Keith and Chuck on my tech team, and Sky, our marketing director, and Jeff, her assistant, who actually helps me behind the scenes to do all this. So super thankful for every single one of you guys. We couldn't be here and do this without you guys. Our mission here at Bree Health is a big deal to us and our vision. So I like to share it with you guys here on the show. We have over 40 years in the mental health and employee benefit industry. And our mission and our vision is to make these services as accessible as possible. And we're bringing you guys that through innovative technology to your employees' fingertips. We want to be able to help them with life coaching, virtual life coaching, in addition to that, self-guided resources. So if you guys want to learn more, it is an employer sponsored benefit, which means that your employees can't access this platform or Bree Health without you guys sponsoring it. You will personally work with me. So if you'd like to learn more about Bree Health, Sky's going to go ahead and drop the link. In addition, if you want to get on my calendar to discuss what that looks like, I'm more than happy to meet with every single one of you guys personally to discuss that. Now, before we start rolling into the show and talking details, we do have to make sure that we make our attorneys happy with the show. And we need to let you guys know that the content of the show is proprietary and it's property of Bree Health. We make absolutely no promises or guarantees about the information that is shared here on the show. We're really just drawing from opinions and personal experiences and recommendations. And so we have a lot of those coming up. All right, social media spotlight. Today I wanted to do something different. How many of you guys throw your emojis, throw your chats, your comments in the chat box? But I'm wondering from you guys, how many of you guys have a, I see Sky said booth number 3109, guys. So write that down. It's going to be a huge convention. How many of you guys really just like follow a specific person on YouTube? Do you guys do this, or are you one of those that just scroll, the mindless like reel scroll, TikTok scrolls, or do you actually like subscribe to channels? Well, I subscribe to one, and one of my favorite ones, and I hope this doesn't start, and I feel like it will. One of my favorite ones to follow is this one, and so I want you guys to write down Tom Bayou, I think is how you say his name. I love this one, and the reason I'm really teeing up Trevor's conversation today, but also running with the common themes that have been on this show since May. And that is really about leadership and about how to treat your people and how to really show up in the workplace in whatever role, whatever capacity you serve in your employment in your organization. And so I like this one. So today I wanted to do a little bit different for the social media spotlight, but just in case you guys are new, the social media spotlight every single month is really something that I want you guys to participate in with me. And what do I mean by that? If you follow me on LinkedIn, if you have my email address, if you come across anything that you feel like is of value to the inner circle that we are building and our circle of influence, I want you to tag me or share it with it. I'll give you credits. I'll even have you come on camera and chat about it if you'd like. But we really want to find things that are going to move us as a group here. And so I think this is a good one. Hang tight. I'm going to come back on camera in a minute while we give it a show. Sky, let me know if sound doesn't show, but I did share it, so it should work. And we're having tech difficulties. Give me a second, guys. Oh no. See what happens when I try to do something new? Hold on.
Do you love your wife?
Yes.
Prove it. Like, what's the metric? Give me the number that helps me know, right? Because when you met her, you didn't love her. Now you love her, right? Tell me the day the love happened. It's an impossible question. But it's not that it doesn't exist, it's that it's much easier to prove over time, right? Well, leadership is the same thing. It's about transition. So if you were to go to the gym, it's like exercise, right? If you go to the gym and you work out and you come back and you look in the mirror, you will see nothing. And if you go to the gym the next day and you come back and you look in the mirror, you will see nothing, right? So clearly there's no results, can't be measured, it must not be effective. So we quit, right? Or if you fundamentally believe that this is the right course of action and you stick with it, like in a relationship, I bought her flowers and I wished her happy birthday, and she doesn't love me. Clearly I'll give up. That's not what happens. If you believe there's something there, you commit yourself to an act of service. You commit yourself to the regime, the exercise. You can screw it up. You can eat chocolate cake one day. You can skip a day or two. You know, it allows for that. But if you stick with it consistently, I'm not exactly sure what day, but I know you'll start getting into shape. I know it. And the same with the relationship. It's not about the events. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency, right? You go to the dentist twice a year, your teeth will fall out. You have to brush your teeth every day for 2 minutes. What does brushing your teeth twice a day for 2 minutes do? Nothing. Unless you do it every day, twice a day for 2 minutes, right? It's the consistency. Going to the gym for 9 hours does not get you into shape. Working out every day for 20 minutes gets you into shape. So the problem is we treat leadership with intensity. We have a 2-day offsite, we invite a bunch of speakers, we give everybody a certificate, you're a leader, right? Those things are like going to the dentist. They're very important, they're good for reminding us or getting us back on track, learning new lessons, but it's the daily practice of all the monotonous, little, boring things like brushing your teeth that matter the most. She didn't fall in love with you because you remembered her birthday and bought her flowers on Valentine's Day. She fell in love with you because when you woke up in the morning, you said good morning to her before you checked your phone. She fell in love with you because when you went to the fridge to get yourself a drink, you got her one without even asking. She fell in love with you because when you had an amazing day at work and she came home and she had a terrible day at work, you didn't say, yeah, but let me tell you about my day. You sat and listened to her awful day and you didn't say a thing about your amazing day. This is why she fell in love with you. I can't tell you exactly what day, and it was no particular thing you did. It was the accumulation of all of those little things that she woke up one day and as if she pressed a button, she goes, I love him, right? Leadership is exactly the same. There's no event. There's no thing I can tell you you have to do that your people will trust you. It just doesn't work that way. It's an accumulation of lots and lots of little things that anyone by themselves is innocuous and useless. Literally, pointless by themselves. People will look at little things that are good leadership practices and say, that won't work. And you're absolutely right. But if you do it consistently, and you do it in combination with lots of other little things, like saying good morning to someone, that looking them in the eye. My friend George, who's a 3-star general in the Marine Corps, he says his test for leadership, and I love this, he goes, his test for a good leader is if you ask somebody how their day is going, you actually care about the answer. The number of times we're walking to a meeting, we're rushing, we go, how are you? Not good, I gotta get to you later, I'm late for a meeting. Right. If you ask the question, you were standing there and you were listening to the answer. It's those little innocuous things that you do over and over and over and over that people will say, I love my job. Not I like my job. I like my job means, yeah, the challenge is great, they pay me well, I like the people. I love my job means, I don't want to work anywhere else. I don't care how much somebody else is willing to pay me. I'm devoted to the people here, and I care desperately about the people here as if they were my family. In business, we have colleagues and coworkers. In the military, they have brothers and sisters. That's how they think of each other. If you really have a strong corporate culture, the people will think of each other like brothers and sisters. It's like a family, right? No, brothers and sisters. Deep love. Fight, but the love doesn't go away. Bicker, the love doesn't go away. And I'll fight with my sister, but if you threaten my sister, you're gonna have to deal with me, right? We'll fight internally, we'll bicker with each other, but nobody's gonna hurt each other, and if anything from the outside shows up, you're looking at a unified front. Brothers and sisters. Now, how do you create brothers and sisters out of strangers? Common beliefs, common values, parents, in other words, executives who care about their children's success, who care to raise their children, teach them skills, discipline them when necessary, help them build their self-confidence so that they can go on and achieve something more than you could have ever imagined achieving for yourself. That's leadership.
Wow. Was that some food for thought for you guys if you were in leadership? Let's look at these comments. I love this. Okay. Simon is amazing. I've been following him for many, many years. Thank you for sharing. This is my first time seeing his work. I'll have to watch more. I absolutely love this. This is, you guys, just a food for thought. It's the little tiny things. And don't you just love so much that all this comes together, whether it's parenting or being in management or just walking in your daily life. There's so many skill sets and things that we could take away, even on our show here, and apply them to our real life. And so I hope that one moved you guys. I really, really enjoyed it. All right, we are, drum roll, Trevor, behind the scenes, get ready, you're coming up next. But before I introduce our guest speaker today, Do you want to be a guest speaker on the Be Well with Mel show? I will tell you guys, we had an amazing response when we launched the show back in May during Mental Health Awareness Month. And I am just completely honored that you guys want to be on this platform and you're helping us build this community. So we are currently booked out all the way until February of 2024. But if you are new and if you have something that you want to come and speak with and you want us to feature you and you want to speak to the hearts and the minds of the HR community that we've built here at Bree Health, please, Sky is going to drop that link. Go ahead and register, fill it out. Let us know your topic. We try really, really hard not to repeat topics. So if you just head over to the YouTube, you'll find all the past shows. You can see what topics we have covered and discussions we have covered in the past. And if you have a new one that you guys want to bring, that would be amazing. I'd love to have a quick chat with you guys. She also dropped my calendar link. You can also choose to meet with me just about the podcast if you guys want to. So excited to talk about all of our future guests coming up here next year because we are booked out, y'all. Also, Sky and I have really been talking. I wanted to take a poll really quick since I have a couple extra minutes, Trevor, before I bring you up. I want to do a poll on LinkedIn too and YouTube, everywhere. I want everybody to answer to me. I think this would be a great way for us to find out. When we launched this show back in May, we did this show every 2 weeks. And we had an amazing response to it. We're doing it monthly now. We are gathering registrations and new viewers all the time. But I'm curious to know from you guys, from a time perspective, is something like this more benefit or easier for you guys to attend live if it's once a month and consistent like we're doing every third Tuesday of the month? And or would you like it to be more consistent weekly or bi-weekly? I'm going to take a poll. I should have actually done a poll here on Zoom, but I didn't do that before. So can you guys just drop it to me? All I want you to say is monthly, bi-weekly, or weekly. I'm just curious from our audience. You guys matter. We're here for you. That's why we're showing up. So please use the Q&A box if you're inside of Zoom. If you're on LinkedIn, I see them coming in. Do me a favor and just drop it. And that will help us plan for 2024 to serve you guys best. So thank you so much for your participation in that. All right, guys, without further ado, I'm going to bring here in a second Trevor on camera, but let me go ahead and make sure that you guys know his accolades and all the amazingness about Trevor. First off, I was at SHRM and I mentioned he was my next guest speaker, and so many people knew of this guy, and I was thankful, blessed. I found him on LinkedIn and we got connected that way. So super blessed to come across you, Trevor. But Trevor is an accomplished HR leader with an emphasis in talent management, HR technology, and employee experience, one of the topics we're talking about today. He holds a SHRM Senior Certified Professional designation and has a Master's of Science in Human Resource Management from the University of Southern California. He currently works as a senior manager in the real estate industry and has worked in tech and renewable energy. I'm just wondering if you're coming to HR Tech after reading your little bio here, Trevor. Everybody, welcome to the mic, please. Our guest speaker for today, Trevor Norton. And Trevor, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you, Mel? Thank you for the intro.
So good. Well, I know that you have prepared for today and you have a slide deck that you're going to share with us. So let me know if you are able to do that. I should have given you all the controls.
Yes, let us get going. All right. Can you see it, Mel? If you can see it, then we're all set. Sweet. All right, so let's jump into talking about retention and employee experience. And I just want to say, Mel, that video was the perfect tee up is talking about, how important the little things are. Is that really does, we'll get into that a little bit, but the little things are really what matters the most in employee experience and helping your employees be happy and stay where they're at. Mel did a really good job with a brief intro, but just to add on a little bit, so I've been working in HR for a little over 5 years now, and prior to working in HR, I spent 6 years working in the senior living industry. I have a bachelor's of science in management and a bachelor's of arts in international business from ASU, and then I did cheat on ASU and go get grad school at USC, so I have a little bit of internal conflict there on the sports front, but otherwise no issue there. And then I also have my senior certification from the Society of Human Resource Management. And I love all things employees. As Mel mentioned, I've worked in a lot of different industries. I've worked with a lot of different workforces, and I feel that's given me a really unique perspective on what employees like and how they like to be treated in the workplace and really what they're looking to get for beyond just the actual work that they're doing. So let's set the stage a little bit about retention and employee experience and start with some definitions. So retention is defined as an organization's ability to retain quality employees, and it's typically measured as a percentage. And you want that percentage to be high because that means you're retaining as many of the employees as you can. On the flip side, you have turnover, which is the inverse of retention, and that's how many employees are departing your organization. Retention is really driven by a company's culture and the employee experience, as if an employee is not happy, they're likely not going to stay. And if they are, they're going to stay for as long as they can. Employee experience, which is now commonly referred to as EX in shorthand, is the cumulative assessment of an employee's interaction with the company and their people. And this encompasses quite literally everything. It's the actual experience that the employee is having. It includes the technology that they're using to get their job, the relationships that they have with their manager and their team, who they report to, in addition to the actual work that the employee is doing. The employee experience is unique to the employee. No employee has the same experience, even if they're in the same role. Things like location, are they a remote employee? Are they on site? Are they working a little bit of both? How long have they been with the organization? Who do they report to? Do they report to a mid-level manager? Are they reporting into an executive? Are they an individual contributor? All of these factors can influence the employee's experience and change how the employee is feeling in their day-to-day. This may be a newer topic to some organizations as well, as it feels like it's been a buzzword, especially in recent years. But it's something that's really critical and cannot be overlooked, and organizations have got to start prioritizing employee experience. The most impactful part of an employee experience is actually the things that you can't see, because it's how the employee feels and how they're being treated, as that can really have an impact on whether the employee stays or whether they leave. Trust, respect, fairness, and the ability to show up to work as their authentic self are all a part of the employee experience and how they're feeling, but those aren't things that we can easily see by just looking at an employee or checking what their HRIS record or anything like that.
Why do we think, I just have a question. Why do we think, because did you go to Vegas SHRM this year?
I did last year. Not SHRM, I went to HR Tech last year.
Sorry, that's what I meant. So why do we, it was a huge topic this year. And I mean, the breakout sessions, the amount of breakout sessions that we're covering, they separated it, right? So I love how you're relating, like retention actually, or employee experience actually affects this. But they actually separated the two. Why do you feel like retention is a buzzword this year over past years? Like, why is it this year that we're more concerned about that? Do you have a theme or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really, we keep hearing about the great resignation, and we've seen how the job market's been in the past year. And I think employers are like, we really got to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep their employees and diagnose the issue of why people are leaving. And employers, have to be more competitive than ever to keep their employees. And so that's why retention's becoming such a hot topic. But to your point, it's been segmented in some ways. I feel like people are talking about point A to tie into retention, or point B, and you really have to look at it some ways holistically to make sure that you know where your strengths are and weaknesses in an organization.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a little bit off topic, but I'm going to circle it back. It has more to do with talent acquisition. But I remember, I know we all keep saying post-COVID, but I remember when I was applying for jobs, I had lost my job during COVID when I was in higher education. And I remember I was applying, and I just wasn't getting any jobs. And then someone had said to me, well, think about it. Before COVID, you were up against the people in your town. You were applying against people, the candidates against you that were in your town. Now it's the entire United States. Oh, wait, now it's overseas. Now it's globally, you're up against all of these people. And so from a retention standpoint, I can only imagine that had an impact too.
Exactly. And you mentioned something else that ties into it is remote work just skyrocketed after COVID. And so before there may have been only a handful of remote employees in organizations, but now organizations have possibly an entire remote first workplace. And that completely changes how the employee experience needs to be managed, as remote employees have different needs than in-office employees. So there's just so many factors, especially like you mentioned, COVID really changed the game and really put employee experience and retention at the front of mind, just because it changed the way that people are working.
You made a good point really quick. So before we move on, guys, I would write that down. Not only do employees have a different experience, they don't experience the same thing, but those employees also have different needs, right? And so do we consider those? Do we consider how Julie is having a different experience than Bob? And does she have different needs than he does? Like very, okay, I love it.
And even drilling into that, it can be different. Even like I think where managers can often fall short, they're like, I have 5 employees that are all in the same role. They must be having the exact same employee experience, which is almost never the case.
And I'd be interested to know how outside like life impacts that experience.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So you guys know Bree Health is very much work-life balance. Like that is our focus here at Bree Health. And if we don't recognize certain things that are happening outside of the workplace, they are influencing productivity and culture and experience inside of the workplace. And so that would be another factor to consider in the differences of maybe you're providing the same leadership or the same culture or the same pay scale or all the same, but they have 2 different things going on in life, or they have different needs, or they have, as we talk. So love it.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you. So there's a few ways that you can think about turnover and retention before we kind of dive into the so what. And so I found this great graphic from the Academy to Innovate HR that talks about the different ways where you can classify turnover and retention. So first, thinking about retention, those are your employees that aren't going anywhere anytime soon on a voluntary basis. First, you have functional retention, which are the employees that you have those great employees. You know, they're top performers, they're always meeting their goals, they're great to work with, everybody enjoys working with them. Functional retention occurs when you're keeping those great employees as you don't want them to go anywhere. However, on the flip side, you have dysfunctional retention, which is when you have one of those employees that might not be meeting expectations. You know, they might just be not meeting their goals, or they actually could be counterproductive and bringing in negative actions to the workforce and negatively impacting other employees. But those employees aren't also going somewhere. So dysfunctional retention occurs when you're retaining those employees that you might not want to stick around. On the other hand, you have turnover that can be classified as dysfunctional or functional, or sometimes regrettable or not regrettable turnover. Dysfunctional turnover or regrettable turnover is when you have one of those great employees that's meeting their goals, but then they up out and leave as they found another job or they found something else and they decided to part ways. And so that's when you're losing an employee that you really didn't want to lose. However, functional turnover or not regrettable turnover is one of those employees that was causing trouble, might have not been meeting expectations and needed to go out the door, and then they leave on their own terms, which is great because then that you're losing that employee that you might not have wanted to keep around anyways. And so when you think about turnover and retention in these 4 buckets, you can pretty much classify all of the employees that you have or that you know are on their way out in one of these 4 buckets. And so that's a really good way to set the stage before we talk about why does it matter. So here are the 3 key things that we're going to talk through about why retention and employee experience matter. First, retention doesn't mean keep everyone. Next up, regrettable turnover is costly and it adversely impacts the employee experience. And then functional retention increases employee engagement. And I call this out because a lot of people think about the employee experience impacting retention, and a lot of people typically talk about it as a one-way street, but it's really a cycle. Employee experience impacts retention just as much as retention impacts your employee experience, and they have the symbiotic relationship, so they really work together. All right.
I'm curious, I'm going to chime in right quick. I'm curious, out of the different types that you listed.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the audience first, and then I'm going to ask you. So you get your answer, but don't tell it. All right, guys, I want you to use the Q&A. Out of these, as an HR representative or leader, I want you to chime in. Tell me which one you think is the most difficult to manage or the most difficult to see, walk away, let go, whatever that action is. I'm just curious to know in your role. Let's see if they come in. I'm sorry, I have to look on my phone, guys, if you're chiming in on LinkedIn or YouTube. All right, let's see. They're probably getting their thoughts together. If you want to go ahead and spill yours, which one do you think it is?
I'll spill mine, and I feel like this may be coming because I feel like a lot of my peers would say the same thing, but it's dysfunctional turnover or regrettable turnover. It's when you have that employee that's great, that they've been meeting their goals. They may even have been up for promotion soon, but they leave. And the reason that that's always the hardest to manage is because there's likely something that the employer or the manager could have done to keep them, and they either didn't do it quick enough or didn't do it in the right way, and it wasn't enough to keep the employee.
Okay, it looks like dysfunctional retention is trending right now. So do you want to speak any extra to that one?
Yeah, those would be almost tied, because it's just as hard to see a good employee leave as to figure out what you're going to do when you have an employee that you know isn't going anywhere that needs to be managed in some sort of way, whether that be managed up to meet expectations or managed out of the organization. That's also just not as fun. But for me, the reason I think dysfunctional turnover is a little more challenging to deal with is because with dysfunctional retention, the employee's still there, so you can take action and you can potentially get the situation in a better spot. Whereas once that good employee leaves, there's not really much you can do.
Do you feel like do you feel like there's anything you can do, or any clues or anything to give you a heads up that would happen, and or to help you retain even though they had intentions otherwise?
I mean, there's tons of our tools, and we'll get into some of the tips and tricks towards the end of how to make sure you can keep those good employees. But I mean, there's endless things that you can do. And 9 times out of 10, the employee has expressed what they're looking for one way or another. And you just have to be able to ensure that you're listening and have that need made aware of.
I love it.
Awesome. Good to keep moving?
Keep moving.
Sweet. All right. So first, thinking about retention doesn't mean keep everyone. And so a lot of people, they hear retention, they're like, oh my gosh, that just means I need to keep as many employees as I can and make sure that as little employees leave. And that's not always the case, as like we were talking about. Sometimes you have those employees that are actively causing harm to the organization or being counterproductive. So I actually wanted to ask you, Mel, have you ever had a coworker or somebody in the workplace that's made it really hard to work with and hard to thrive in your work environment?
Yes.
How did that make you feel? Or how did that employee make you feel, or how did it impact your employee experience?
I think it's just emotionally draining more than anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, most everybody has had, I'd be surprised if anybody said they didn't have one, but they had a coworker that's really hard to work with, whether they're not meeting expectations and you're having to pick up their extra slack, or they're really negative and then it's making you get frustrated, or they're just being counterproductive and adversely impact you. That is somebody who's hopefully trying to just do the good work and get the job done. And obviously there's a difference between, picking up for slack when somebody is, going through something, but really those employees that are consistently not meeting expectations and really causing harm. There's a lot of reasons why you don't want to retain those good employees, is they can actually start to create disengagement among other employees. So if you are consistently around an employee that's negative and is bringing you down, draining you, you're not going to show up to work happy. You're going to wake up and going, oh, I don't want to go to work and deal with X employee again. And so managers need to be prepared to take action and act quickly when they're learning about this. I think now, especially more than ever, with the job market that we're in, with companies that, have tight labor budgets, they might be like, they're not meeting expectations, but I'm not sure if I want to do anything yet, just because they don't want to strain the team or something like that. But really, at the end of the day, the way I like to tell managers in situations like this, when they have an employee that clearly is not meeting expectations, is you either can deal with the one employee vacancy now, or you can deal with 2 issues down the road that could be resulted by keeping that good employee. Because more often than not, if you don't take action soon enough, that employee that's being counterproductive is going to bring down other employees and drive other employees out the door. So you're going to be out good team members and stuck with the bad one that you're also going to then have to get rid of anyway.
What a great point. And guys, I've been in management and leadership nearly my entire career. And it wasn't by choice. I got asked to do it and I signed up for it. But can I just empathize with everybody that's tuning in right now? This is hard stuff. It's hard to make these type of decisions and to make sure that they're the right decisions that don't bleed out, or it's a lot. And so empathizing for 5 seconds with you guys, it's a lot as a manager or an HR leader to take this responsibility. And yeah, it's who do you choose? And do you choose them all, or do you choose one, or it's a lot?
Exactly. And another thing that can come with this is, more often than not, if you're getting frustrated because of another employee, the first person you're going to blame is either your manager or the company for not doing anything about it. So I think that's really where the challenges can come, is because employees are going to start to get frustrated, and then they're going to get upset and either leave, especially when employers aren't taking action. So I always encourage managers to make sure they're having those transparent conversations with their employees, but also knowing that employees need to feel safe to bring up any concerns that they have with their manager or human resources to get those addressed. Just because all it takes, somebody has to be able to report it if somehow the bad employee is flying under the radar and getting by with not meeting expectations without management knowing. So it's kind of a hard 2-way street, but I think the biggest thing that people need to be aware of is you don't want to keep everybody, and you need to be prepared to take action when you need to get somebody to either be managed up to expectations or managed to transition out of the organization. All right. Next up is regrettable turnover is costly. So anytime you lose an employee, most of us know that it costs a lot to replace an employee, but it costs more than just dollars. But we'll first start with the dollars. Experts estimate right now to replace an employee, it can cost anywhere from 0.5 to 2 times their yearly salary. And it actually goes up to 4 times their yearly salary for executive level employees as well. So that's a lot of dollars right off of the bat. And so this directly can impact the employee experience, because if a company is consistently having to spend money in recruitment costs, in replacing, and I mean, you just are losing productivity when you're consistently replacing employees. That's money that they're spending on turnover that then could be used for other services to help improve the employee experience. Like, they're spending so much money on turnover, they might not be able to buy Bree Health or some other better benefit that the employee needs. So if turnover costs are lower, then the company has more funds to use towards other benefits to help improve the employee experience. But there's also a lot of intangible costs. If you lose one of those great employees that's been there for 7 years, been through all these big deals and has trained everybody, you're losing a lot of intangible things when those employee leaves. They could have great relationships with other internal key stakeholders. They could have vendor contacts. They could have influence over key stakeholders and decision makers that you can't get in a replacement, even if you hire somebody with the exact same qualifications and skill set. People also have a lot of tribal knowledge. When you're losing those good employees who've been there for a long time, you can do as much as you can to transition knowledge and make sure you get everything, but you're never going to get 100% of that tribal knowledge downloaded out of their brain. As we all know, some people just have it all up in their brain. And so regrettable turnover can be extremely costly, both in the numbers perspective and in an intangible way. And all of these costs can also adversely impact the remaining employees' experience. So if you have somebody that's left on your team, somebody else is going to pick up the slack, whether it be the manager or somebody else in the team. And we all know that almost 100% of the time when somebody leaves and you're covering their job, you're not getting an extra pay bump or anything to cover that job. So then employees are getting frustrated because they're doing extra work for not extra pay, and they're frustrated because they're having to pick up the slack of whatever was left off. So all of these things can really negatively impact the employee experience when you're having a lot of regrettable turnover. So that's why it's important to keep up that functional retention to ensure that you're keeping the good employees in place.
These are so many great points, Trevor, that you just don't think about when you're in that decision-making process, whether you're the employee or the employer, right? Like, the employee is also making a decision. And I'd be curious to hear the other side of that, with when somebody chooses to leave, like what's regrettable for them on the other side of it, not for the HR representative.
Yeah, I can share a little bit from what I've had, as I've had, unfortunately, a few experiences where the employee, we really tried everything that they can do to get them to stay, and unfortunately just still doesn't work out. And one of the themes I always hear is, why did it take so long to get action taken? So like, I can think of an example where an employee had been doing supervisory work for probably 6 months, but they were still in technically an individual contributor role. And they kept saying, hey, I've taken on this extra work, like it needs to be recognized. And so finally, then the employee comes to me one day and they handed me their resignation letter. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, is there anything we can do? Yada, yada, yada. Worked with management, and we finally got that supervisor promotion pulled through and handed them a counteroffer letter. And the employee was like, too little, too late. Like, as much as I would have loved to stay, like, why did it take me resigning to get that extra bump or the recognition that they deserve?
Wow, what a lesson to be learned in that.
Exactly. And so again, that goes back to taking action in a timely manner, because if you wait too long, kind of on the opposite side of what I mentioned earlier, of taking action on those negative employees when they're being counterproductive or not meeting expectations, you also got to be ready to take action on your good employees when they're exceeding expectations and ready for that next step.
Great point. Great point.
Awesome. All right, let's jump into the last point. And so functional retention increases engagement, and employee engagement is critical to having a strong employee experience and just the overall success of the business. Statistics show that engaged employees are more productive and create better results. They drive the business forward. If you are excited to come to work and you're loving what you're doing and you have a great team that you're working with, you're going to come in and you're going to do your best and get your job done. On the flip side, when there's not functional retention, and then when there's high turnover or dysfunctional retention, burnout and disdain and disengagement all start to come into play. And so, like we were talking about earlier, when you have dysfunctional retention, those employees that are actively negative or being disrespectful or just not doing their job or still in the organization, the employees that are still there are going to get frustrated, and they're going to be like, why am I still here? Why am I not being compensated? And they're going to be upset, and they're going to want to start leaving. So by keeping that functional retention high and only functional retention and not dysfunctional retention, you'll increase engagement with those existing employees because they'll be good employees consistently showing up to work. Everybody knows their expectations and they're being met, and then employees will continue to thrive. One of the scariest statistics that I think might be in my presentation today is that disengaged employees are estimated to cost companies as much as $500 billion a year. And that, I mean, that just is a jaw-dropping statistic. So those employees that are in your organization that are being negative, not being productive, and they're spreading that to other employees, and that's decreasing productivity and decreasing engagement. So it's really important to keep functional retention up to increase engagement, or else you're costing your company dollars, whether you see it or not. All right. So we've talked about why it's all important. So I'm going to talk about some ways on how you can actually increase functional retention, because I'm sure you're all sitting here, we're like, all right, we get it. So now how do we make it better? Yeah. And the first one is, we've talked on this a little bit, but we need to make sure that we're setting clear expectations to all employees and that we're being consistent in how those expectations are being enforced. So every employee, and sometimes some people might think it's crazy that you actually have to say this, but employees need to know what's expected of them. They need to know, when their deadlines are, they need to know what they're expected to be doing when, and they need to have a clear list of duties that they're expected to do so they know what they need to be doing. And it's even more important to make sure those expectations are set, because you have to be able to enforce them in case expectations aren't being met. Because if you haven't told your employee what they're responsible for, how are you going to come to them and be like, hey, you aren't getting ABC done? Because the employee will be like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to be doing ABC.
And can I just chime in that job description when they were hired and the onboarding isn't enough, right? Because it's a lot. You're in a new employee, you're applying for 1 million jobs, you get one, and then outside of that, you go into onboarding, and we all know that onboarding and I had the greatest onboarding experience, and I'm going to praise my team for this, but it's a lot of information quick. So I might have read my expectations, I might have heard my expectations, but by the time that I'm actually sitting in the seat and doing it, do I really know what you're expecting of me? And so just a point there, make sure that even after somebody joins your team, like there's got to be some points where you temp check them just to make sure. I even do it with our kids, right? It's funny. I just had this conversation this morning in our house. We moved into a new home. I said, we need to set the expectations. Just because we have a new home doesn't mean that rules have changed. Doesn't mean that. So it's just, there has to be these light, gentle reminders. And then I love, really quick, be consistent. That was the theme of that video, right? Like, don't slide over the piece of paper that says it. Be consistent and reminding and holding them accountable. But those little actions of consistency are what going to make them show up at their best.
Exactly. And I also wanted to add it. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm sure everybody is signed on to a job where you have that line in your job description that's other duties as assigned or something like that. So that's why it's really important to have those conversations, is there could be some things slid in there that didn't get listed out in the job description. Yeah. But another part about consistency that's important is if anybody finds themselves in a situation where you're having to set expectations and manage performance of an employee that might not be meeting those expectations, that's really also where the consistency comes into play. Because if you're not consistently enforcing expectations, even with your good employees, and say they had something happen and they missed a deadline one time, even though it won't happen with them again, you still have to be consistent in enforcing that. Because when you come to the employee who is not consistently meeting those expectations, they're going to be like, well, you didn't enforce it with employee A, so why do I also need to be held to the same standards? So you have to be consistent with those standards to everybody, regardless of whether they're a top performer or not, as that can open people up to issues and won't let people be able to thrive in their role. All right. Another way that is great to increase functional retention, and this is again a hot topic that everybody's been talking about, is diversity, equity, and inclusion, but especially companies need to facilitate an atmosphere of belonging, which is one of the most important parts of anything DEI related. Employees need to be able to show up in a place where they can feel safe, where they can feel included, and companies just need to be creating a diverse workforce. And there's so many benefits from this, apart from increasing engagement. A part of, allowing employees to show up to work as their authentic self. Statistics show that when employees feel a sense of belonging, turnover can be reduced by as much as 50%. That's half. That is a huge number. And so by investing in diversity, equity, and inclusion, by investing in making sure employees feel safe and that they can show up to their work as their authentic self, you're already doing great work to reduce turnover, even if you can't see the direct correlation from that, because that's just a critical component that cannot be overlooked in today's world. And last, we already talked about this some, but it's be prepared to take action. And I just cannot hit this home enough, is I think every HR professional that's listening has definitely had more than one situation where a manager's coming to you and they're saying, oh my gosh, I have this employee, I need them, I want to do something, I want to take action, whether it be terminate them, put them on a performance improvement plan. And 9 times out of 10, the first questions an HR person will ask a manager is, what have you communicated to the employee? And they'll be like, oh, well, I haven't said anything to them yet. And I think that's something that all managers need to take as ownership. Managers are responsible for their team, and they need to be consistently enforcing those expectations and taking action on it when they're seeing something that needs changing. Because if they're just writing in their, one-on-one notes of, oh, they missed this report again, but they're not telling the employee, or they're not taking action to communicate that, then we won't be able to take any action in HR to help them manage that performance. Hopefully, managers are doing the good work and documenting that or communicating. And then when it comes time to take more action, HR is ready to do it. And HR leaders also need to be ready to do it, especially in this environment.
And I want to take that just a step further. I feel like this is, and I might go on a little rant, so you can check me. But lately, I've been hearing in this community so many crises and situations and concerns and challenges that we're facing in the workplace. And a lot of us do a lot of talking. But then when I ask, what are you doing? What the action part that you're talking about, a lot of people want to talk about it, but nobody wants to do something about it, right? And so just a challenge to our little inner circle here is let's start being action takers, and if we and really just applying the things that we need to do, finding the solutions, and not only finding them and not only talking about them and doing the due diligence to learn about them, but implementing them and actually doing the work. It's been a big topic of conversation in my, with the people that I'm surrounded by. And so taking action, nothing changes if we don't actually go and do something about it. So I absolutely love that. Well, guys, we are coming up at the top of the hour, but I want to open it up for any questions or final thoughts for you, Trevor. Thank you so much for all of this. We're going to put all this together in their takeaway gift. Good stuff. I'm sure Jeff is over there like taking notes like crazy. You brought up so many points that we just don't think about, right? We think about retention, and all we think about is keeping the employee. We think about the employee experience, and we think about, what can we do? What can we do to make a happy culture? But there's so much more outside of that you touched on. So do we have any questions for Trevor before he goes? I'm looking in, Sky will actually just drop them in for me if we have any. If not, any final thoughts, Trevor?
Oh gosh, I think the only other thing is just be prepared to take action soon. And then a phrase I like to use a lot is V1 over V none. Sometimes I feel like people can get so caught up in, oh my gosh, it's not where I want it to be just yet. But especially in cultural initiatives, get something out and see how your employees react, because 9 times out of 10, it'll be a lot more productive and the employees will be a lot happier if you get something on, you're like, hey, we're piloting this, or we want to launch this and we want to test it. Can you give us your feedback? Because rather than waiting and iterating and seeing how perfect you can get it, once you get something out, you'll get the feedback from your employees. And those are the people that are receiving it. So you want to know how they're going to receive it. So it's important to get that feedback and not just sit around waiting, because I feel like that's where a lot of the not taking action can get held up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. You were a pleasure hosting today. Guys, if you have not registered yet and you're still watching on YouTube and on LinkedIn, do me a favor, and Sky's going to drop one last time the registration link. The reason for you guys to do that is to get all of today's notes put together for you by my beautiful marketing team and emailed over to you guys. But this is the conclusion of September's Be Well with Mel show. We will see you guys the 3rd Tuesday in October, which I feel like it just comes so quick. It's not near Halloween. I always have to think about holidays. But we will see you guys the 3rd Tuesday in October. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.